I saw this chart earlier and it scared me. It's a very scary looking chart. This is from Indeed, which is a website for hiring developers and other people directly, if you're not familiar. It's a quick contracting service site for finding people to work for you, both for contracts and for full-time jobs. And it's a chart of how many people were looking to hire software developers. This was for the availability of job positions, like postings for new job roles on Indeed. And in 2022, the spike was just insane, but it very quickly started going down. And now we're in this rough patch. This initial dip, by the way, for those curious, was COVID, where everyone had no idea what financials were going to look like. So they immediately halted everything. And then as COVID not necessarily cleared up, but we realized the importance of tech as a result of COVID, we started hiring so many more engineers, especially during the zero interest rate era. But now we're back to where we were when COVID started. This seems really, really bad. So we should look into this more. The first source I check for things like this is Layoffs FYI, which is a phenomenal place to see the current state of the layoffs and how many tech jobs that used to exist no longer do. If we look here, this is the chart showing from 2022 to 2024. It got real bad early 2022 in this era here. If we look here, we could see in 2020 when COVID started, we had some number of layoffs, but we had a lot of companies doing layoffs, but they weren't that big of layoffs. Like, is 60,000 tech people not having a job anymore bad? Absolutely. But that's not even measurable compared to 167,000, and that being like a pretty maintained thing here. The layoff sucked. I'm not going to ever pretend otherwise. The amount of chaos that a lot of good engineers are going through is hard to fathom. And the fact that we've had such a secure position in the industry for so long has got a lot of us complacent. And now we're realizing maybe our jobs aren't just this easy, free solution for getting paid a whole bunch of money. I love this tweet from Levels. If you don't know Levels, we don't always agree, but for the most part, we get along. I actually think we now recognize that we think about software and building things in a very different way, and the way that we build being different makes sense to us both now. He lists how much money he's making on all of his projects. He has a bunch of different things he's built, one of which is remoteok.com, which is a website for finding remote work. Just a fancy, flashy PHP site with all these opportunities for people who want to work at a company where they know they can do such remotely. Cool stuff. He makes cool things. I bring him up because he had quite the journey with Remote OK. I was making $140,000 a month with Remote OK, which was his remote job board. I was printing money because the Fed was printing money. Feltgoodman.xlsx. Particularly funny to put that in a spreadsheet format. Then they stopped and it dropped 95% overnight to 10K a month. Now it's back up to 40K a month, which is great and all, but he'll always remember the good days, which was this massive spike in the middle here. That bubble, that spike, this section here, that's over. That is without question over. That level of desperation that we haven't seen since is not going to come back. Be it AI, be it layoffs, be it the state of the economics of all of these things, the massive opportunity spike in the late 2021s and early 2022, that's over now. But does that mean new developers are screwed? Does that mean that we're not going to be able to find new jobs? The software engineer gold rush is over. As a former software engineer, it always made me uneasy how much money they got paid compared to the difficulty of the job. This was an interesting comment somebody replied to on his stuff, which is the number of freelance workers in the United States, which has been going up massively for a bit now, and how much tech industry is leaning into using contractors now. The past year, contractors' share of open positions in the overall US economy has stayed relatively steady, while tech contractors' share has surged. Yeah. A lot more roles for contractors, even though the number of roles for full-time has not been growing anywhere near as much. Really useful information to have here. That said, the numbers aren't quite as bad as they might seem when we see these things. There are more high-quality candidates on the market because there's people who have been laid off that had years of experience. So if you're a brand new dev fresh out of college, things are definitely going to be a bit harder for you. You have to build some trust with some people who have jobs to use that as leverage to get a good opportunity. And that can be tough. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it isn't. But we also need to be realistic about where we're at. I found this awesome survey, The State of the Tech Workforce from CompTIA. I'll have this link in the description if you're curious. There's a lot of good information in this that I wanted to break down. Here is a great start. This is the projected total workers in tech in 2024. Apparently 61% of the net tech employment is in technology occupations specifically. So this is tech companies overall, tech sector, but the gray boxes here are things like sales, marketing, finance, HR, etc. The rest is all developers, network architects, database admins, all the things you would go to university and watch my channel because you're one of. But if we go down here, you can see this is a lot less scary than you might have been told. This is the total number of roles available, both ones that have been filled and ones that are currently being hired for, it's still going up. Admittedly, we had one of the smallest bumps ever going from 2022 to 2023. And the number of people retiring in tech isn't enough to leave open space for new grads. So this many new opportunities is nowhere near enough. Leave this one in phase. Shout out to Vanjiraf, hopefully I got your name right, for your first chat being a very useful link, because we just spent a bunch of time asking various search engines and AI for this answer, and you dropped the exact one very quickly. So here we can see year over year how many computer science grads there were. Not computer science specifically, this is a more general computer and information sciences conferred by post-secondary institutions. It's just more generic than that. But you get the idea. It's meant to be representative of people in the US getting computer science degrees every year and things that would reasonably expect them to be a programmer for a job. So back in even 2010, we were still only seeing about 40,000 people, which was roughly the same as it was in the 2000s. So from 2000 to 2010, we saw some ups and downs, but for the most part, things stayed pretty stable for the number of people looking to get jobs in tech because we weren't getting too many more new grads every year. But what's happened since is this has grown a lot. We went to 60,000 in 2014. We went to 65,000 in 2016. We went to 70,000 right after, then 80,000, then almost 90,000, then almost 100,000. We settled in 2021 at over 104,000 people graduating with degrees in the technical space, looking for jobs, doing things generally associated with computer science. That's a huge number. And that's just the US. If you were to project that globally, that is terrifying. So if we go back to the survey we were just looking at here, again, just US, finding global numbers is basically impossible. But you'll notice that from 2022 to 2023, we had 117,000 new jobs, which is basically the same number that we had new people enter the workforce. If we go back here, 104,000 people entering the workforce, 117,000 new job opportunities. Apparently, this has continued to change. In 2021 and 2022, we grew even more, 108,000. So this problem is not getting better. We still have more people graduating, looking for tech jobs than ever. And we have the layoffs happening, which is resulting in more people trying to find opportunities as well. We're finally closing that gap where there were so many more roles than there were people looking to fill them. Like if this gap was double from 2020 to 2021, which it probably was, that's over 200,000 new job opportunities with under 100,000 new devs. And if we go from 2018 to 2019, again, very similar, but even fewer new devs. The reason that everyone's been saying for so long, go get a job in tech, go learn how to code, you'll get a job, is because the desperation companies had trying to fill roles was insane. It was so difficult to find enough engineers because there weren't enough engineers. There were way more opportunities than there were engineers, and we weren't getting new devs fast enough through things like graduating CS. This is why boot camps happened. This is why everybody tried to learn coding during COVID. This is why AI is so exciting. This has resulted in a lot of things for the industry. But as a result, we also overhired because it was so hard to get engineers that out of fear of not having enough, we would just constantly hire more and more of them. There were even companies like Google that would strategically hire engineers and not have them do anything just to make it harder for Facebook to get those same engineers. Those things are insane. And thankfully, it's starting to slow down. But that kind of sucks for people looking for jobs now too. Tech occupation employment outlook. Workforce need equals annual replacement rate plus growth rate. According to the projections from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and Lightcast, in the next 10 years, the tech workforce will grow twice as fast as the overall U.S. workforce. The macro trend of digital transformation means demand for tech talent across the full spectrum of tech job roles will continue unabated. Oh, this is fun. By the way, if you're curious where all these engineers live, mostly in California, but look at how close Texas is now. Texas is almost at 1 million tech employees. That's insane that Texas is now bigger than New York for tech workers. Never would have thought we'd see the day, but here we are. And as we see here, Texas is gaining the fastest too. California might even be in the negative with all the layoffs and people leaving. Absolutely nuts. This is probably the chart that we should spend the most time thinking about here, because in here we see the drop that made us all so panicked. This is why everybody was terrified. With AI on the horizon, with interest rates going up again, with companies starting all the layoffs, we started to see a significant shift downwards in the number of job offer or options and posts available for people looking for getting roles. They also break this down by advanced digital fluency versus basic. And you'll notice that the advanced is going up quite a bit faster, but both still going up here. But it's going up again. Now that we're back in 2024, it seems like things are getting better. That is a good thing to see. And one more fun thing, I don't think you guys understand how well paid American engineers are on average. The estimated median tech wage is $104,556, which is 130% higher than the median national wage. Software devs make more than twice as much money than the average worker in the US, which is just nuts. And also, if you're the type of person watching these videos and you're in the US and you make less than this, you're above average, you're here. So yeah, get more money. It's time. One more useful piece of info when we're comparing these numbers comes from Chatter. Oh, Vanjie again. Thank you so much, man. You're super, super helpful. This is the state of bootcamp graduates, which includes another 58,756 people. Also notice a lot more from New York, more New York than SF, which is unexpected. But yeah, so we have the 100,000 people getting degrees, then another 60,000 graduating from boot camps. That's so many people looking for new jobs, which made a lot of sense when there were 300,000 plus new jobs every year and nobody was retiring and companies needed to fill these roles. Now that it's balanced out a bit, it's going to get a lot more competitive. The gold rush, as people were describing it, to learn tech so that somebody would hire you because there just were so many companies desperate for engineers. That made sense. The reason that happened was a massive shortage of supply and a massive demand to counteract it. The demand has gotten lower. It's starting to grow again, but the supply appears to continue to grow, which means more than ever, it's important to stand out as a candidate. Getting a job is all about trust now. Previously, there were so few people to hire that we were able to hire with less trust. We could bring a candidate on that might not be the perfect fit because we couldn't find a perfect fit. It was too much work to find good candidates because there were so few of them and there were so many roles we were trying to fill. That has shifted. There are more engineers looking for jobs. There are more good engineers looking for jobs, and there are a decent number fewer jobs. And also with work from home and the normalization of the internet and getting work done from people that aren't necessarily in your office, that's why we see this number here, which is the massive growth in contractors doing tech work too. If you can just hire a random contractor to build the thing for you, pay them way less money, not have to worry about giving them health insurance and multiple years of employment, it's way less risk. You don't need as much trust to do that. And they can go do it way faster too. If they're writing these types of things for a lot of people, they're using AI tools and all that. So they can be more efficient, they can be cheaper, and way less risk to the business that is hiring them. I know companies like Google even, part of their layoff strategy is to move towards hiring more contractors and firms, often from other countries. So the market is getting more global and is getting more competitive, but it's not getting smaller. And that's the thing I really wanted to emphasize, is that first chart, the one that triggered me into making this in the first place, seems to make it look like there are way fewer jobs available and it's going to be impossible for anyone to find work. But the growth is still there. As we saw in the CompTIA survey, we're actually seeing quite a bit of growth even now. And the projected growth from 2023 to 2024 is 300,000 new jobs. And honestly, that kind of lines up with what I'm seeing. So while you should be a little scared, I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I think it's important to be realistic too. The future for software dev is bright. And if you're the type of person that watches videos like this in your spare time, that learns new tools and technologies, that is a good contributor to the places that you work, you're still going to be set. Good engineers are not the ones that need to worry. It's engineers that don't want to be engineers in the first place that are going to start having a harder and harder time. If you're just in tech for the money and you don't have any interest in bettering your skills, you're the type of person that graduated college and still don't know what Git is, you're going to have to work a bit harder than you did before. I'd argue that part of why we have the layoffs is because we had lowered the bar too much. That aside, as long as you can actually write code and you're actually part of communities of people who write code, the future is still very bright for you. But yes, the bar is higher than it was before. Just having a piece of paper that says you know how to code is not enough to get a job right now. And I don't know if that will ever change. I don't know if it should either. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, peace.